Hello viewers, today for repair I have two Panasonic cordless telephones, and the reason I'm doing this video together is because although these are very different models, they each have the same problem, and it's a very common problem, and it's going to be fixed the same way for both telephones. I'm going to demonstrate the problem now. The problem is the handsets will blank out generally when you put it on speakerphone. It can happen other times as well, but typically that's how it happens. And it's a critical problem because the telephone is very unreliable right now, and therefore it's pretty much useless. So the way you fix this, okay, is to replace the batteries in the telephones. I have new batteries for each of these telephones. I'm going to demonstrate how to replace them in a moment. But first I want to go around and explain why this has happened and exactly what's happened to the batteries and how to prevent it from happening in the future. So the phenomenon that we're seeing here is called the battery memory effect. Both of these batteries have developed a memory effect because they've been overcharged. And I don't mean overcharged from a technical standpoint, because I don't believe that's even possible with the charges that come with these telephones. But it's been overcharged in a figurative standpoint. There's nothing wrong with these telephones. The problem is rather situated in the way the telephone is used. Most people talk on the telephone and then put it back on the charge cradle and leave it there until they use the telephone again. That may be okay for a couple of weeks, but after several months or a year, the batteries will begin to spoil from being used that way. Now these two telephones have nickel metal hydride batteries, which are a fair bit more resilient to the memory effect than nickel cadmium batteries are. So I have two telephone manuals here, which we're going to look at to explain how to use the batteries correctly. This is an older manual, okay, and this one is from a Untitled telephone, but we're going to look at one from a Panasonic telephone too. So I'll zoom in on this text here, and you'll see we have a note about the battery memory effect. And basically what this says is that you don't want to use the telephone for a short period of time and then throw it back on charge, because what happens is the battery only remembers, if you will, what capacity of it that you use. So for example, if you talk on a telephone for an hour, and let's say that uses 20% of the battery, and then you charge it back up again, and you do that cycle all the time, eventually it's going to forget, if you will, the unused 80% of the capacity, and it's only going to remember the 20%. So if you only use the telephone for an hour, forever, then you won't have a problem. But if one day you want to use the telephone for an hour and a half or 2 hours, you'll get cut off at the hour mark, because that's the only capacity the battery remembers. Now the other thing that you want to do is you don't want to leave it on charge for a long period of time. We're going to look at this other Panasonic manual now. And you'll see up here at the top it says to recharge the battery when it displays recharge battery on the handset. The reason, if you may have not noticed this, but on the handset, when it's sitting in the cradle, it'll eventually say charge completed on the display, and then on these newer ones it says fully charged. The reason why it says that is because when it reaches full charge, you're supposed to take it off the cradle, and then the battery doesn't overcharge. Again, figuratively, it doesn't literally overcharge. A lot of people are very surprised by the battery life on these telephones, okay? You'll see here, when not in use to standby, it can sit around out of the cradle for 11 days before losing a charge. So there's a common misconception that goes around and states that, the telephone just sit in the cradle all the time because the battery's going to go dead. It's not. These telephones utilize LSD batteries, which are low self-discharge batteries. So if they're sitting there in standby not being used, they're not going to go down much. And when you have telephones like this, which have a battery icon up at the top, it's very easy to keep an eye on the charge, and when it gets to the last pipper, just plan to toss it on charge that night. So that's a look at the manuals. And again, this is for a different telephone. But so is this. They all say the same thing. So that's the battery memory effect. So basically, what you want to do is not develop a habit of talking on the telephone and then putting it back on charge and talking and putting it back on charge. Now that when you have a telephone that has nickel cadmium batteries, which some of them still use, even though those are very old batteries, um, those type of batteries you have to drain it out completely every time you use the phone, otherwise it will get a memory. These telephones here use nickel metal hydride batteries, which can still be overcharged in the figurative sense, but they're much more resilient to the memory effect. So I found the best way to use these telephones is to just avoid developing a pattern of recharge and discharge. So sometimes you want to put the telephone back on the cradle when it has 2 out of 3 bars, and the next day put it back on the cradle when it's got 1 out of 3 bars, the next day when it's got half a charge, or however much you talk on the phone. But you want to make sure that every time you put it back on the charge, you have used a good portion of the battery. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to demonstrate how to replace the battery. These two telephones have different types of battery packs and different battery covers. This one is much more standard. This one is much better in my opinion, but it's very uncommon. So this one, pull that tab down, pull this off, and here's the battery. If you pull it from the top out, it comes right out very easy. Now I have a new battery here. I'm going to open this up. I should have opened this up before I started the video, but I forgot. Here's the new battery. As you can see, it's identical in every aspect, including the specifications. Actually, this one's a little bit higher milliamps, but that's okay. I'm going to put this battery in, put the cover back on, snap that up, and here we go. Now, the battery is only at a quarter charge because I've never charged these batteries before. When you first replace the battery, it's very important to charge it up all the way, uninterrupted. So unplug your phone line, put this on charge, let it sit there until the display reads fully charged. If you don't do that, the battery will not reach full capacity. So this should be working properly now. Whereas before it had a full charge and it didn't work, now it's all the way down to a third charge and it's still working fine. So this telephone has now been repaired. This telephone is a little bit more difficult to open up. You have to press down on this and slide this off. Now that one came off relatively easily. They don't all come off that easily. So I'm going to pull out these batteries here. And I'm going to do a segment on how to order these batteries because there's lots of different kinds, and if you buy them from the right place, they can be better quality than what the telephone originally came with, and they're very, very economical. These batteries, I believe, are about $3 a piece. But anyway, so that's that. So now I'm going to put new batteries in the telephone. Now, these batteries, the packs only fit in one way, so there's really no way to screw it up. But with these telephones, you have to be careful to observe the polarity. There's little icons on there, or pictures, whatever you want to call it. So the batteries go in like this. So that's the tip with the, whatever you want to call that thing on there, positive, negative, line that up and put that in. So now you can slide the cover back on, put it on like this, and then slide it up until it clicks in place. And now you see it says charge for 7 hours. Do that before you use it. Just to demonstrate that it's been repaired, I'll turn this on. It's got to link up first. Why is this taking so long? Okay, I had to set this in the base unit to get it resynced up again, but I'll turn this on here. And as you can see, it's working fine. So now both of these telephones have been repaired. It's a very easy fix. And it's a very economical fix too. Again, in the future, I'm going to do a segment on how to buy these telephone batteries. And if you have a telephone that's suffering from this problem, this is the fix. It'll fix it every time. And if you use the batteries properly, they could last a good up to 10 years or so. I have telephone batteries that have been going 15 years and they're still holding on. But that's it. So that's how you fix the handset blanking out problem. And if you're interested in getting new battery for your telephones, be looking out for the video on how to buy new batteries. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you have one, and subscribe for more videos. Out.